Minister. I want to especially acknowledge the presence of contingent of African associations and students of India here. Can I just have a show of hands of AASI members? Thank you so much for being here. And of course, we have our own students and some more on the way. I believe another AASI contingent has been held up, but should be reaching shortly. We are really privileged to host Dr. Bosco, President of the Brazil Africa Institute, here today. As you know, it's very common to look at Africa from a Western lens or from our own individual lenses. But there's something else which we can gain by looking at it from a broader global South perspective. So it's very rare for Indian universities to have speakers, distinguished eminent speakers from Latin America to talk about these two regions. So we are happy hosting this for not just for formal reasons, but because we believe that India also has an important role to play in furthering South-South cooperation, and that we could actually triangulate what is already going on between Latin America and Africa. Especially what you call powerful states within the global South like Brazil and India have a big responsibility to be able to help build capacities of fellow African nations and peoples, and also to imagine how they could become greater extra-regional players beyond their own neighborhoods. So for Brazil to be acknowledged as an emerging power or a rising power or a great power, eventually it will need to be in Africa in a much bigger way than it already is today. And it's the same holds for India. And then the question is what happens with India and Latin America? That's the third element here. And because of geography, because of distance, because of language, it's largely Spanish and Portuguese speaking, we have not been able to really harness this connection as much as we should have. But lately, if you read my recent book, Monte, I speak about how there is a push for greater Indian involvement in Latin America, not just for trade and business, because that is certainly an area with high growth potential, but also in these kind of initiatives where we could pair up to try and stabilize the entire global South, to be net security providers, to also help in infrastructure growth and in other forms of joint assistance. So now there is a very important initiative going on in this university, which I would like to apprise you of. And this, in a way, Dr. Bosco's presence here is important because he's in a way kickstarting this project for us, which is the grant we have received from the Asia Foundation to study India's foreign development assistance programs. And Professor Karen Vasquez, my colleague from Brazil, is leading this initiative. And we also have partnered with the General School of Government and Public Policy. So it's a joint initiative of the School of International Affairs and School of Public Policy. And we are going to be looking closely at models of foreign assistance that are emerging from these rising powers outside the global north. So Brazil is an obvious choice, so is India, and we're going to be looking at a few others as well, China, without saying. There is a sense of crisis about Brazil, and we know what's happening there, especially in the last 1 year, the political crisis, the impeachment of the president, and there's also the economic crisis. So there is a sense of despair about BRICS and about emerging economies lately. But I always have argued that the fundamentals, I don't mean like policy fundamentals, but I mean the demographics and the socioeconomic structures are still in favor of BRICS and other emerging economies to rise to great power status and to also stabilize the world. So I think it's really good fortune for us. You may have heard dozens of American and European speakers in this university before, and a few African ones, but it's very rare to have a professor of international relations from Brazil to come and share his thoughts. So really encouraged. Thank you, sir, for coming. Thank you for being with us here today and for sharing your knowledge. We just signed an MOU between the Brazil Africa Institute and General Global University to advance joint work, including research and potentially trainings, as well as student mobility. So there's a lot happening and coming in the months ahead. I hope some of our students can go to Fortaleza, where Dr. Bosco's institute is located. And as the director of our international programs was just saying, whenever General students have gone to Brazil, they've come back really happy and have wanted to spend more time there. So I think there's a phenomenal opportunity for student mobility and for joint research as well. And we're really looking forward to making an impact through this MOU. And always our MOUs have looked towards the benefits of students, especially in student mobility. So hopefully you will be soon hearing some calls to bid for joining some exciting trips to the Western Hemisphere. We are running late in time, but there's another delegation coming, so I'm trying to hold you all up for them to come. But maybe meanwhile, I'll request my colleague Professor Karim to tell us about our center, which is also being revamped, the Center for Africa, Latin America, Caribbean Studies. There are a few Center for African Studies in India in some universities, and then there is a separate Center for Latin American Studies. But the reason we clubbed all of them together in one formulation called CALAX is because we believe that India can engage with all of them with not in a cookie cutter fashion with all, but the idea was that we have a bigger role as an emerging power in the entire global south, and to club them together simply means that we acknowledge even the Caribbean, for example. Mr. Mike Singh of Guyana is on our advisory board, and he's likely to come here soon to speak about how the CARICOM nations and India need to expand in a big way. So there's a lot of potential, and we hope that here at JSIA and JGU, we are spearheading this in new directions, opening new vistas for South-South learning and exposure, which has been sorely missing. So while we have all this sense of solidarity for fellow developing countries, we've not been able to really concretize it. There's less visibility of scholars and students of both sides in each other's universities and research institutions. So through this, we hope to fill the gap. So I request Professor Karim Bosco, as my colleague, to inform us about her center and the goals while the other delegation comes in. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming, especially the students from the Association of Students, African Students in India, as well as all the students, JGU, at the different schools. And most importantly, thank you very much, Dr. Bosco, for coming and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us all. It's a great pleasure for us, as this is the first event being hosted by the Center of African, Latin American, and Caribbean Studies, to have Dr. Bosco to talk with us today. The center, the vision of the center is to expose students to bring the knowledge from African region, from Latin America, from the Caribbean to India, and vice versa, and demystify and approximate a little bit more, close the bridge between the three regions. As well as we're also looking to become being hosted at JSIA, but we aim to become a hub in JGU for interregional cooperation. And as Shrida mentioned, through trainings, through dialogues like this one, and several other activities that we'll be designing in the upcoming months. Essentially, the center aims to work in two main fields. The first one being the relations, the bilateral relations between India and the countries in these three regions, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, as well as in different topics like economics, trade, finance, sustainable development, human rights. And the second area of study that we aim to explore is how India and countries in these three regions, as part of the global south, what types of ideas and innovations they contribute to the global governance, and how they can together change the status quo. So we hope to achieve this mission and this vision through three main activities, being the first one, training, the second, research, and specifically applied research, and the third one being dialogues and other events and workshops like this one. The launch of the center was firstly announced during the BRIC Civil Forum in October last year, where we had the opportunity to bring 80 students from JGU to participate at this event organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of India and Research Systems, which is a think tank, RIS, a think tank based in Delhi. As you may be aware, India hosted the BRICS last year. And so this was one of the conferences, this BRIC Civil Society was one of the conferences organized during the Indian presidency, and our students had the opportunity to not only to listen to practitioners in the field from India, from Brazil, from Russia, from South Africa, from China, but also interact with them and ask questions and listen and share their ideas. We had a special briefing during the Civil BRICS Forum with the BRICS ambassadors to India. And that session was specially designed for our students, and that was the occasion in which we launched the idea of revamping the Center for African, Latin American, and Caribbean Studies. We have then joined up with the School of Public Policy and the Asia Foundation, as Shrita mentioned, in a new research project that is being combined with an elective course on development cooperation, and the students completing the course and the capstone project will have a certificate, a specialization in development cooperation. So we are bridging the gap and building the capacity in JGU to do research and high quality research, but also applied research. So research that can inform policy making and make JGU students present in footprint, not only in India, but also abroad. With no further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Bosco Monte to give his lecture. And again, we are looking forward to starting new activities under this MOU, and Alex will be here to assist. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the university to invite me to be here, to have a conversation. This is a lecture, but more than that, it's an opportunity to interact with people from India, from other parts of the world, from Africa, to discuss about the potential, the dialogue, the opportunity between Brazil, Africa, Latin America, South America, India. So the global South will be in the agenda of this discussion today. I'm a professor of international relations, and now I use part of my time trying to discuss with people, talk with people about the new possibility, the new vision, the new moment of dialogue. And most of the people think so many things about Africa, about Latin America, which is a paradigm that we need to change. That's the vision that we need to change. What is Africa? What is Latin America? First of all, how many countries we have in Africa? Do you have an idea? 54, 55, let's put 54 is better than 55. 55 is a very big issue. Let's not go into this issue now, right? 54, right? The African students, they...
Western Sahara, if you count.
Yeah, so let's put this 54. I mean, I've been in Dakhla many times, and I did discussion that between Africa, Morocco, other places. So 54, I think that's the accurate number, official. So in Latin America, how many countries we have?
Latin America is...
All right, 33. That's a good number, right? 54 plus 33 comes to good number. So those two regions represents a very big, important part of the global, I mean the Earth, right? So what's the population of Africa? 1.2, 1.3 billion. Is it too much?
1.3.
Is it too much? Yes. It's not too much. 1 point. Well, we need about.
Not for the land.
But the perspective is in 2050, this number could double. Comes to 2 billion people. It's too much. What's the population of Latin America? 650 million. Is it too much? No, man. It's not too much. Well, if we talk about India, what 650 million is just one part of the country. But it's too much, right? When people talk about Africa, we think that Africa is one single place. I keep saying this to Brazilians, to other people, that you should know Africa to understand what is Africa. You should understand Latin America to talk about Latin America. So those two regions represents a good part of the planet, right? If you go to Nigeria itself, the country has 200 million people, same size as Brazil. 200 million people is too much. The young people in Africa and Latin America, it's very expressive now. The middle class in both regions are also starting to grow. So the relationship, the business, the opportunities between those two regions is starting to be in the agenda. What we'll be talking now is the dialogue that is not being taking place between Africa and Latin America. But we cannot let out of this discussion other regions, other places. And India is one of the places, one of the part of the discussion that we cannot leave. We cannot forgive. So now, what we are doing now is putting India, I spoke this with Professor Karim, India in this platform, the triangular cooperation, triangular partnership. Most of the time, we think that the distance, the geography, could be a very big barrier. It is. Of course, for me, to arrive here from Brazil takes 22 hours. Is it far? Very far. But although it's far, I'm here. How many people from India could come to Brazil, to Argentina, to Mexico, to Paraguay? Is it possible to reach this part of the world? Yes, of course it is. So, but we need to understand that it's necessary to reach those areas to understand what is going on. When you talk about Latin America, what's the biggest country in Latin America that comes to your mind? Brazil, right? So we have more than Brazil in Latin America. But of course, Brazil represents a very important country in Latin America. I would like to cut a little bit this part of Latin America and address a little bit more on South America. South America has 13 countries, and Brazil is surrounded by those countries. Out of 13, Brazil has border with 10 countries. So that's one of the countries in the world that have a border with so many other countries. And the relationship of Brazil between those neighbors is very stable, very peaceful, which is something very important to consider. So if you come to a country that has 10 countries with borders, without fights, no wars, this means too much. What's the potential that we see in Africa besides raw material? What else we have in Nigeria besides oil? What else we have in Zambia besides copper? Do you think there is more than that in those countries? Yes. Most of the people, they think that in those African countries, we see just those potential to extract, to take out. But it's more than that. Agriculture in Africa, is it possible to feed Africa itself, but also feed India, feed other parts of the world? Yes. So, in Africa, in places, in countries like Sudan, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Mozambique, DRC, other countries, we have land, we have water, we have people, we have possibility to produce. I'll give an example. What we did recently, I took all the African ambassadors based in Brazil from the SADC region. The SADC region has 15 countries. I took 10 of them to visit the biggest sweet melon producer in the world, based close to Fortaleza. Give me a good number. How many melons do you think the farm produces per day? Sure, I know you know too much about fruits and sweet melon. Give a good number. Don't be shy. Karin? Per day, biggest watermelon producer in the world. 5,000. You have been so shy.
We cannot think like the Chinese. They think mass, in massive.
100? 1 million melons per day. You almost got it. Is it a big number? Of course, even for India, it's a good number, right? What was the message that the ambassador got in this visit? The message is very simple. If you can produce 1 million melons per day here, same semi-arid, same climate conditions, we can do it in Africa. But there's another possibility, bigger than we have in Brazil. What's the population of Brazil? 200 million. What's the population of Africa? 1.2, 6 times. But besides that, what countries are around Africa? India, China, depend what Africa are talking about, right? But I'm talking to produce in Africa, to feed Africa for local consumption, continental consumption, but also to export to other parts of the world, to Middle East. I visit Saudi Arabia, and I was talk with people who produces milk. You know, they have to go to South America to bring crops to feed those animals, to produce there. And the discussion was, why don't you produce here in Africa, in Sudan, in Kenya, Ethiopia, to take this over Saudi Arabia? Is it possible, this equation? Yes. So those figures that I'm giving to you is just for us to understand that there is a very big possibilities, opportunities. The target of this conversation is to see opportunities through dialogue. But how can we find opportunities without dialoguing, discussing, talking, interacting with people? This is maybe the biggest challenge for us. We need to stay together. We need to talk, to understand our differences, but also what combines us. By the way, how many minutes do I have? 2 hours?
We could take 20 more minutes.
20 more minutes? Wow.
And then we have questions.
All right, okay, sure. Is infrastructure a thing that should be fixed both in Latin America and in Africa as well? Yes, infrastructure is something that is missing in many parts of Africa and also in many parts of Latin America. And I think this is also an opportunity that we can bring. And India should be invited to work, to discuss, to find results and good answers for this issue as well. Professor Shuren, you mentioned about South-South cooperation. And Professor Karin also mentioned South-South cooperation, triangular cooperation. We should not leave this discussion. South-South cooperation is something very important, but more than South-South cooperation, I would like to bring a new word to this discussion, which is partnership. Partnership cooperation. Because when you talk about cooperation only, we may start today, but do not last for a long time. Maybe the cooperation will end soon because of the lack of investment and the possibility that the money, even that we put in this discussion, is not enough. But when you talk about partnership, could last for a long time, as long as the partnership is good for the parts involved. And how many parts can we involve in this discussion? Could be 2, 3, 4, we name it. And this triangular partnership that we are talking now involves other places besides Brazil, Latin America and Africa. And I'm insisting in India, because India looks like very far from this discussion. Of course, India is more close to Africa, because some countries have a very good relationship, even we have the diaspora in many places in Africa. But to Brazil, India is not too close. But we are related with the BRICS that was mentioned already here, and with the IPSA as well, another forum. Those forums integrate possibilities for the two countries to be together, but not just Brazil. And Brazil could be, Professor Karin, the gateway for this region in Latin America. I'm not saying that the dialogue could not be with Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, but I'm very sure that the connection is more efficient to Brazil. And Brazil now, looking to Africa, has 6 companies flying between Brazil and Africa, which is something very important. When I'm talking with the businessmen, I used to say we need to have flights to connect regions. Without flights, we are not able to reach people. Now, for me to reach Brazil from here, of course, because of the distance, there is no possibility to have a straight flight, right? From Delhi to São Paulo.
Yeah, we can. Now, Delhi to San Francisco, it's 22 hours or 20 hours. This is Delhi.
Direct flight. Do you think it's possible to stay 22 hours on a plane? After 6 hours, I will take a flight tomorrow. I cannot suffer in advance. From here to Brazil, there is not a straight flight, but if I take a straight flight, it will be more than 20 hours. But India, what's the name of the company here? Air India. Air India, right? Air India. Air India doesn't have a flight to Brazil. But of course, we should link India to South America. Through where? Africa. Africa is the place. Actually, when I'm leaving tomorrow back to Brazil, I'll take a flight from here, from Delhi to Addis Ababa to Brazil. This was not possible before, and now it's a reality. We have one airline linking 2 regions, Brazil to India. This is one kind of South-South partnership and triangular, because we have possibilities that business people from one part can go to another part very easy. In 2006, there was one very good initiative started by the former Brazilian president Lula da Silva, who, among other presidents, decided to start the forum called ASA, Africa and South America. They had this first meeting in Abuja, and then they had in Margarita Island in Venezuela, and then another one later in Malabo. And the next was supposed to be held in Ecuador, but was not possible to happen. But this initiative, integrated government, that's something I would like to point now. Without commitment between government, starting with the government, we cannot give the opportunity for business to happen. If the trade does not start with the government, with the diplomats, with the bureaucrats, a business could not be a reality. So this initiative was very important. But one man, I'm not saying that he was the most important person, but he said, President Lula said in 2003 that Africa and Latin America would be a priority for his government. And this is something that we should understand as a good point, a good start point for this initiative. And right now, sadly, we do not have that kind of a platform. And I think India could restart this possibility of interaction, because I see that the government of India is pushing in that direction to deal with others in the south mainly, right? I'm coming to the end of this part of the discussion. What should we do to address opportunities between Latin America and Africa? First, we need to understand the potential of each part of the continent, each little portion, each little country. But also, we need to see the potential. And where is the most important potential that we see both in Africa and Latin America? Is the people in both places, right? I'm very pleased to say that out of 54 countries I visit already, I've been maybe 42 African countries, which is, from here I was in Nigeria, South Africa and Tanzania, which is a common trip that I used to do. And every time when I come to those countries, I see the potential in the people, especially young people, and I see here the faces, and I'm very proud that you are doing this, bringing this dialogue, inviting people to see the potential that we can start to discuss in this reality. I'm the president of Brazil Africa Institute. That's an organization based in Brazil, and what we do mainly is very simple. We put people together. We bring leaders from many areas, from many fields, to present their experiences, what they are doing, what possibilities they are finding when they are meeting other people. When they express, when they present their ideas, their experiences, something comes very easy to the table. Is it possible to transform the ideas into reality? Yes. And I see things concrete, very, very easy. There is one African proverb that I used to use too much, which is, if you want to go fast, you should go alone. But if you want to go further, you should go together. If you go alone, you cannot go very far. You go fast, but going fast doesn't mean that you will get good results. Now, the idea is to work together. Latin America, Africa, and also putting India in this discussion to go far. I don't know how far we go, but now we do sign an agreement, Brazil Africa Institute and the university, and the idea is to emphasize and to amplify the possibility of interaction to transform ideas into actions. I don't want to take longer. I think do I have 2 more hours? No. That's enough. All right, so I think that what we're doing now is putting together people, you, me, and the university to decide, to think, what can we find together, right? And the idea is to go very far. But to go far, we need to be together. Being together, I think, is the most important thing that you have to have in our mind. Brazil Africa Institute is fostering this. Every year we have some events that we organize in Brazil and Africa. But the idea is not just to have an event, but to bring ideas and transform those ideas in real actions. Okay, I thank you for your silence, and I'm very happy to discuss and to interact with you. Thank you very much.
Physical connectivity, but also at the level of ideas and imagination, to feel closer. It's not easy to feel closer when there are large geographical and linguistic differences. But what he's saying is we need to also feel closer. It's an attitude issue. It's a mental issue to feel closer. So hopefully we can do it, this triangular cooperation. We're opening up to questions. Just please raise your hand and address it to Dr. Bosco. Comments and questions, please. Maybe he was speaking at a general level, he may want to go to something specific. Yeah? Questions? Okay, maybe I just kick-started it while you're thinking about it. Sir, how do we escape the perception that these large emerging powers are out to exploit Africa and that they are no different, these meaning, let's say, India and Brazil, that they are no different from what the Western, the Europeans and the Americans have done there? How do we distinguish what we are doing there vis-a-vis the role of the historic role of the global North?
I think that the North is already in Africa for a long time, in Latin America as well, but they are not working as partners. I think we should have another phase in this possibility of doing things. When Berlin came and the continent was divided, was not a fair division, because we divide people, ethnics, in 2 or 3 countries. And till today, we do not see, that's something that I can see for sure when I visit Africa, that we cannot see possibilities of progress in this interaction. The donors that, from Western countries, that when they come to Africa, they give money, but they are not thinking how to improve people's life, to change people's life. This is not for today, it's for a long time. And I think the possibility that we are fostering now is to work together. I mean, we should bring this in the agenda. And the South-South dialogue, I think, is more appropriate. The North-South dialogue, if you can say that, Professor Karim, did not brought so far answer that we should have.
Sir, Professor,
Hello, sir.
Oh, Mike, is it?
Hello, sir.
Oh, sir, after
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Could you please elaborate a
Please
little more
introduce
on
yourself.
Hello, sir. My name is Vaishali. I am from Jindal School of Government and Public Policy. I'm doing my master's in public policy there. I just could you please elaborate a little more on partnership cooperation?
How is it different from
Dialoguing, right? South-South cooperation means you have one country from the south related to another country from the south, and we may have another possibility to have the third party. This is not wrong, but I'm trying to emphasize that besides cooperation, when you put the word partnership, means that it's not a business actually, but partnership means that the agreement, the mind in this relationship is more efficient, because when you look for partnership, it means that you have a target, a specific. Mainly when you talk about cooperation, you have one donor, have someone who is giving something, and the other one who is receiving something. When you have a partnership, it means that the contract, let's put this word coded, right, means that as long as the contract is viable, the results will be better.
So, Professor.
Dr. Bosco, as you came from Delhi to our campus, you might have seen these big public transport buses. Many of them are Marco Polos, which are Brazilian and which are made here and are part of the transportation fleet. In the same way, when I was in Brazil, I noticed that your health system, the SUS, got a lot of its medicines from India. So there is already a certain amount of relationship that's going on. Many of our private airlines are buying Embraer planes. So I think one thing that we could do immediately is for our students and faculty and yours to get together and document some of these. These are success stories that have been going on for a while and nobody knows about them. So I think it would be very useful to start doing that.
Should I?
Yeah, please.
I never had the opportunity to use your medicines in Brazil.
I hope you don't.
All right. And I realized that some of you use our Marco Polo buses, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of partnership that we should foster. And what you mentioned, how many people in India, when they are using Marco Polo buses, they know that this is from Brazil.
They don't know. They don't know.
And once I was taking an airplane, a flight within Africa. I don't remember exactly. I think it was in Mozambique, and there was an Embraer plane. You know how proud I was when I was inside the airplane. My wish was to speak with the pilot and say, listen, let me allow these people that the airplane that they are using is from Brazil. So Brazil is doing some cooperation, partnership with India, but we don't know too much. And we need to amplify this, we need to let people know about it. This is something that we don't do too much with Africa. Let me give an example. Today, if we want to make a call, phone call from Brazil to Uganda, South Africa, you name it, the call use a cable that goes to US or Europe, right? But just 6 months ago, we finished one undersea cable which links Luanda to Fortaleza. Will be the first cable. Do you know what company made this? One company from Angola. And people think, is it possible that Angola company would do that? Because in our mind, we think that those big projects are from the north. Is it correct? Is it right? So we need to change this. We need to say, listen, this is not from the north, it's from the south. The biggest airport in Brazil, in Latin America, is the airport of São Paulo, right? Until 5 years ago, the airport of São Paulo was one airport, and now it's another airport. Professor Karim, did you notice that? You know what company is running the airport of São Paulo? The same company that runs the airport of South Africa. Actually, the company is the South Africa Airport Company. So, is it possible that one company from South Africa run the biggest airport in Latin America? Yes, it is possible. So, this idea that you're bringing now, I think we need to be more, you should not be so polite sometimes. Don't be shy. We need to express our opinion and say, listen, this is African, this is Indian, this is Brazilian, this is Latin American. We should be proud of it.
I'm Zaruddin Mohammed from Delhi International University. I'm the academic coordinator of Association of African Students here in India. Well, I'm a science student. So before
Which country are you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
From Nigeria.
Yeah, before I forward my question, please will you allow me to, for 1 minute, to greet you the way how student greet in Africa?
Please do it.
Of the greatest African student, of the greatest kaka, eba militant pipi, eba conscious ya kaka. I want to say, I want to yarn, I want to greet, I want to affirm, I want to salute, I want to shh. 3 bosa for him. Bosa, bosa, bosa. In English, thank you, thank you, thank you. In French, merci, merci, merci. In Arabic, shukran, shukran, shukran. In Hindi, dhanyabad, dhanyabad, dhanyabad. Sir, thank you very much. I'm inspired by your short speech, and my question is that it is true to a certain extent that the young leaders like myself in Africa, we have a belief that a lot of countries, especially European and American countries, are using Africa, they are exploiting Africa without giving us a single benefit. And it comes to our own belief that during maybe as we are growing, our generation, a lot of us have the belief that we should think on how to develop on our own. Avoiding other countries, because they are just manipulating our resources and leaving us still in, undeveloped and underdeveloped. So do you think that it can be possible we can make it without doing any partnership with other countries? Then if that's the case, if it can be possible, what are the ways that we can go forward in order, to make it 50-50, or at least, since anything comes from our own land or our own countries, that we should be more beneficial compared to other countries?
Well, I don't think you do everything by your own. It's not easy to do everything just with your own resources in a broadly way, right? When I mentioned to you now that in the African proverb need to go together to bring good results, I think you should be responsible. You should be the one who decide for your future. But you should share. Let's give you. I spoke recently with the president of the African Development Bank, who is Nigerian. He used to be the Nigerian Minister of Agriculture, and we start to think about possibilities of interaction with young people. And we will start in Brazil a program called Youth Technical Training Program. What does it mean? In some areas, Brazil is, let's say, 20 years ahead of some places in Africa. What does it mean? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we had the same situation as we have in some parts of Africa. If we pass this problem, if you are now in agriculture, for example, if we are the biggest crop producer in the world, why don't we bring Africans to Brazil to learn what we did? And when they come back, they will use this knowledge in their own agenda, in their own area, with their own skills. The skill is yours. If you are coming to Brazil to learn what we did, if you come back, if you multiply among yourselves, this will be the opportunity to do in your own decision. I don't think at the beginning you can do by yourself. But what I may understood, what you mentioned is, people, when they come from abroad, they come and they say, listen, you should do this. I think this is wrong. When I come to you and say you have to do this, without customizing, without putting myself in your position, this is wrong. But if you want to do by yourself, we should be smart. Why should I walk if I can take a ride? Because the distance could be very big, and if I do by myself walking, I may take longer than I should, right? So we can work together, but we should put at the beginning of the partnership, what is the part of the job to you, and what's the part of the job for me? I don't know if I get your point.
Yeah, great. Okay, now we have many questions and less time, so we'll just pool all the questions and you can just note down and respond collectively to all of them. So, yes, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Hamza from Chad. I'm an engineer actually. I completed my master from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies here from.
I'm waiting again for the greeting. You did already.
It's fine, sir. I'm Hamza from Chad. I completed my master degree from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies in Dehradun from here in India. Well, sir, my question is, as my country, it is a landlocked country. We don't have access to the sea. And since 2010, the country is just exploring the petrol, and they forgot about the other resources like the agriculture. So you talk about the business, between the relationship between the government and the business. If you want to start a business, you need to take at least permission from the government. And you know, as you already visited so many countries in Africa, you have some ideas about how the politicians and how the governments are going on. So do you think all the countries in Africa, they can stay in one platform to build a infrastructure? I don't know which idea do you think the infrastructure it will be, plane or train or whatever, to collect all the agricultural products and to send it to other countries like in Latin America or in Europe.
Okay, pooling of resources, that's a good, yeah, we can take one more question, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Dario Shiginza from Jinda School of International Affairs. My question is this. Dr. João Bosco Monte, to what extent the South-South Cooperation Platform contributes to fill the gap in the humanitarian field? Do you think the response of emerging countries or South Latin America expose the weaknesses or reaffirm the principle of solidarity? Do you think the South-South cooperation can help in the response of the current refugee crisis the world is facing? Thank you.
One back, yeah, please.
My name is Agri Dave from Stratford University. I'm from Nigeria. So we look at Africa as a continent that's been exploited for a very long time, and there's still a lot of natural resources in Africa that has yet to be explored. From Nigeria, where I come from, our single mineral resources is just oil. Oil is the only foreign exchange earner for Nigeria for over 50 years, and there are over 30 non-mineral resources in Nigeria alone, all untapped. I think steel was tapped and to a large extent was abandoned. We have a steel company that was built by India, the Japanese steel company that was built by India, and it's been abandoned. And we know steel is very important for modern day infrastructure. But basically is, over time, if we look at relationships between African politicians, African elites, with other parts of the world, they've had contracts in the past. We have a lot of infrastructure that has been developed, but at some point in time, it gets abandoned because of political inconsistency most of the times. From one administration, once the administration shifts, the whole project comes to a halt. Now, the idea is most of the times we sit back and we ask ourselves, Africa and African students for decades even before colonization has been going around the world seeking education. And the current leaders in Africa today were, most of them studied abroad, from all over Europe, India, and even in India we can count them. And they gather all the experiences and they go back, and we don't see the change. You go to Europe, you go to America, you see Nigerian doctors, you see African doctors, they do very well, exceptionally well. Even the modern internet we're using today, Philip Emeagwele from Nigeria finally calculated the mathematics that brought about the internet, where he had to leave Nigeria before he could do that. The private sector businessmen, the politicians, they travel all over the world, they see the wonderful infrastructure all over the world. But my question is, why is it that when we get back, we are here also studying now, we get all the experiences, we get all the good grades here, and we compete favorably with every other counterpart in the world. But when we go back to our continent, we just cannot implement the things we see all over the world.
Yeah, please. Any others?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. My name is Presido Kubuni. I'm from Stratford University and representing the Association of African Students in India. It's been a very good interactive session, and so listening to you has been very inspiring. My question is, Africa actually is no doubt one of the richest continents in the whole world. I mean, with its vast mineral resources. But then, over the years, or rather over the decades, there's been there's a problem that is actually it's facing right now. Like, there are lots of factors that are actually militating against the growth of the continent of Africa. I mean, every day, almost every time in the news, we hear about bilateral, relationships being signed with one foreign government or the other. But then we do not see any of this, materializing into something really realistic. What do you think is the problem, and how can this be solved? How can this transform into radical change, into practical development, for the African continent? And my second question is, how do you think Africa can be, an emerging economy, amongst the League of Nations in the continent in the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Last question, please.
Hello, I'm Nandini Uchil and I'm from the admissions office of JGU. My question is, have there been any instances of football diplomacy between Latin American and African countries, given the common passion for football?
Okay, you could choose to answer a few of these. There are a lot of issues that have been raised. You'll give a collective answer.
I try to answer all the questions. If I do not answer, you can ask me outside if I forget something. You said the first question, I think the politicians, they should change. They could not act as they did for so long. And I see some change. Some politicians, not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world, they should change their behavior, the way that they do things. But also, this is something that we should do by ourselves. Sometimes we keep putting the same person in the position that we would like for them to not to be. And they keep doing that, keep doing the same thing, because we do not use our power to change the situation. You mentioned about you have no access to expand or to put your production out of the country. Ethiopia have the same situation, and Ethiopia is one of the biggest food producer in Africa. And how Ethiopia could put its production outside to a partnership with Djibouti. Djibouti is a small country that has a link, exit to the world, and Ethiopia did an agreement. This is a government issue, right? But also, I'm coming now to one of the last questions about how we can change, how can we move the situation to leave the country out of the politician decision. We should bring the private sector to the discussion. Most of the time, we think that just the government is the one who is able to do things. As I tried to mention before, the government is the one who maybe turns the key. But the one who is able to change is the one who is in the real world. Who is the real world? Is the private sector. I give an example to you, and I come now to one of the questions. How can we change the situation in Africa in terms of future of young people? I had a very good experience in Rwanda. If you use your computer, can you tell me where your computer was made? what's what country your computer comes from? China? Only China? Japan? South Korea? India? In Rwanda, last year, one Brazilian-Argentinian company, joint venture, they delivered 150,000 equipments. Do you know what's the beautiful part of this project? If you turn the computer, at the back, you see made in Rwanda. Is it possible that in Rwanda we can assemble a computer? Yes. The president of Rwanda said that Rwanda is recognized as genocide, right? That's something that comes to our mind when we think about Rwanda. Maybe we think about Rwanda, gorillas. Yes, we should think about gorillas. But he said that we should change the situation, and when people think about Rwanda, they have to think something else. And he said that Rwanda should be known as a technological hub of Africa. This is the beginning, change mentality, right? And I'm very proud when I see something made in Africa, made in Rwanda. And now this company, they are doing the same project in Kenya and Zambia and Nigeria. I myself am committed with this in this project because I think if we do not bring the private sector to the discussion, if we leave in the hands of the government, if we leave in the hands of the politicians, things will be not able to change. Because they change. The politicians, they are seated today in this chair, and tomorrow will be somebody else. If we put this in the business people hands, should be that they will do the best. Of course, sometimes we think that the companies that are evil, what's the aim of the business? To profit, right? Is it a problem to be profitable? Of course not. As long as this is something real and fair, right? So the private sector should be invited to the platform of discussion. And the young people, they should understand that. And in Fortaleza, close to Fortaleza, where I live, we have one good experience, which is a university called Unilab, which is international university for Lusophone speaking countries. So that was one decision. We bring African students from Portuguese speaking countries, but also from East Timor and also from Portugal. So they come to Brazil, to this place, to stay there in a 4 years term undergraduate program. I keep saying this to the students from Mozambique, from Guinea-Bissau, from other places. You should not stay here. You should come back. When you finish your program here, 4 years program, your country needs you to change the situation there. Don't wait for them to do it. Of course, this is easy for me to say, but I cannot leave this room without saying this. So we are the ones who are able to change our future. Is it difficult to understand?
No.
So why don't we do that?
The problem is, I can complain?
Yeah, please. Last word.
The problem is, it's not easy as you think, because the government over there, and especially the politicians, they cannot give us a chance. We are so young, we'll go there, we'll come with our ideas. They used to say that those are young people, yesterday you was born, and today you come to tell us what we have to do. You cannot teach us our job. So go and do something else. But I cannot do something else what I cannot do it. I can do only what I know. And if I will come with some idea like this, they will throw me and I'm even scared to be killed. Not just to be thrown away, but to be killed. So there are so many facts like this out there.
Okay, I'm not here to ask you to be killed, please. Be smart. Be smart. Don't be killed. But don't be hidden in the corner, because you'll be killed anyway. It's easy for me to say what you do. I'm not here to say what you do because it's your own future. I have other things to do besides giving orders to you. But what I understand that if you do not do a part of the job, and sometimes you should be straightforward, and sometimes you should not be so straightforward to have things changing, right? But of course, the decision to come back to do things, it's your own decision, and you more than me know what's going on in your own home, right? I don't think that I don't know if I answer all the questions.
Well, I think you got a fair mix of them. Let's end on an optimistic note. All of you know what just happened in Gambia. We're very proud of this outcome. And if you saw how ECOWAS came together and effected legitimate regime change, peaceful transfer of power, you know the power of popular movements have changed Africa historically. So let's not lose hope. And secondly, the role of the region and connectivity. I think Dr. Bosco mentioned how connectivity is crucial. So we need more and more of a closer union in Africa and also between Africa and our region and Latin America. The closer we are, integrated we are, the stronger we are. And the more avenues we have for economic growth and also for fulfilling people's aspirations. The phrase that stayed with me in Dr. Bosco's presentation is it possible? He used that 4 to 5 times. And all of you are nodding saying, yes, it is possible. So I think that is the ultimate spirit and the takeaway from this event. I hope you'll all think about it. He gave some wonderful examples of made in Africa, assembled in Africa, made in Brazil, made in India. I think that is how we will move forward in the 21st century. If we have this hope and this belief and also the knowledge, because we have also been forced to underestimate ourselves. This is what we call the decolonization of the mind. So hopefully we have done some of it today, and we'll continue to decolonize our minds and think about how great we are. We are often very despondent and self-critical, and it's necessary to be self-critical, to reform our systems, for revolution, for change. We must be self-critical, but never forget how great we are. Because the moment we lose that, we allow others to trample over us. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining this.